Members, colleagues, the Finance Committee is to start immediately after the House Committee meeting. This is a special meeting of the Finance Committee, and we have actually informed you in advance that we'll have 2 meetings today. We'll have a break of 10 minutes in between the 2 meetings, and then we'll come back and resume. Colleagues, we've already formed a quorum. Today's Finance Committee will have 2 meetings to continue with the outstanding items carried forward from the 2nd of November last year. To discuss the motion on the notice requirement in respect of amendments to the Finance Committee procedure, Public Works Subcommittee procedure, and Establishment Subcommittee procedure. We'll have a joint debate, and 7 members, including Mr. Albert Chan, Mr. Chan Chi-chun, Mr. Wong Yok-man, Ms. Emily Lau, Mr. Albert Ho, Mr. Sin Chung Kai, and Mr. Wu Chi-wai, had spoken last time. I'll first of all invite those members who have not yet spoken to speak first in accordance with the sequence set out in the paper table today. Each member should only speak once and for 15 minutes only. The procedures to be followed have already been set out in paper 29 and paper 76 of the Finance Committee. So I'll now follow the sequence of speaking. The first one is Mr. Helena Wong, Dr. Helena Wong, who has signified her absence at this meeting. Mr. Ip Kok Him, in accordance with Article 39 of the Rules of Procedure, I'd like to move an adjournment debate. Sorry, I was reading something else. You asked for an adjournment in accordance with Article 39? Yes, in accordance with Article 39, I'd like to move an adjournment motion. All right, a colleague has asked that in accordance with Article 39, the debate should be adjourned on the notice requirement for the procedures. Members can speak on that motion, but for only once only. And the speaking time should not exceed the time set for the motion. I suggest 3 minutes for each member. Those members who would like to speak, please press the speaking button and signify his or her wish to speak. Ms. Emily Lau, I'm not speaking for the moment, but would you please explain to the committee if Mr. Ip's motion is carried, what will be the impact? Will something disappear? Because we're discussing the 5+2 issue. Clerk, can you explain on my behalf? Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ip Kok Him is moving an adjournment debate to discontinue with this discussion on the 5+2 issue in accordance with Article 39 of the Rules of Procedure. If Mr. Ip's motion is vetoed, then we'll continue with the previous discussion. But if the adjournment motion is carried, the so-called consensus on the 5+2 option will not have the consensus of members for the time being, according to what you said on the 2nd of November. then it depends on whether or not the procedures for resuming the debate on the 5+2 option would be discussed. Tabled today, apart from the 5+2 option, Mr. Ip Kok Him and Mr. Ronnie Tong have moved to amend Article 37 of the Finance Committee procedure, and that has not been handled yet. As for the Finance Committee procedure, as two motions are still on table, the FC chairman will have to handle those two motions. And that's 37 of FC procedure. So, Chairman, I suggest that you can propose an appropriate time for members to move the amendment motions. Mr. Chairman, the clerk's answer is not very clear. Today, we are to discuss the amendments to the FC procedure, PWSC procedure, and ESC procedure. Two options are in front of us, either 5+2 or 12+5. If Mr. Ip's adjournment motion is carried, this meeting will end. But when are we going to discuss the framework for amending the three procedures? Is it the chairman is to raise this again and we are to discuss the issue again? Can the clerk elaborate? Clerk, Mr. Chairman, all along, according to the FC procedure, Article 37, the FC chairman can raise issues for the discussion of the FC in accordance with what he deems fit. And the chairman had proposed the 5+2 option. If the adjournment motion is carried, then, as I said, the FC will have no direction for the time being. But still, the two motions have been tabled and the FC chairman has to handle them. And he has to follow Article 37 of the FC procedure in chairing the meeting. I think Ms. Emily Lau is concerned about the period of notice. So the chairman has to consider the duration of notice to be given to members. For the rules of procedure at present, it is 12+5. Previously, the chairman has proposed 5+2. Now, these are two concrete options. As to which option to take, it depends on the FC chairman. I believe it's for the FC chairman to decide. Mr. Chairman, a final question. If Mr. Ip's motion is carried, then those of us who would like to write it clearly in the procedures that it is 12+5, at the next meeting we can move the amendment again, right? Mr. Ip's motion cannot block that. Well, Mr. Ip's motion cannot block that, but today's meeting will have to end. Oh, yes, but we can raise that again at the next meeting because we would like to write that very clearly into the procedures. Legal advisor has something to say? Legal advisor? If there is this adjournment motion, then the original mover has to give 5 full days of notice before he can come back. The clerk mentioned the FC chairman, who is the mover. So it depends on when he will come back, if he decides to come back. Mr. James Toh? Mr. Chairman, let me ask the question in a clearer manner, quoting past experience. If the adjournment motion is carried, as the legal advisor said, 5 full days of notice would be required. Whether it is 12+5 or 5+2, there's still time to submit another amendment to amend the 5+2 or 12+5 options for amending the procedures. Well, I'm not quite clear about your question. You're not referring to Mr. Ronnie Tong's and Mr. Kok Him's amendment. You're talking about the adjournment motion, right? Now, if the adjournment motion is carried, we can resume the meeting later. So long as somebody, maybe the chairman, gives 5 full days of notice, the mechanism can be triggered again, and all other members can move amendments to the FC procedure, Clerk? Well, just now the legal advisor explained that if the adjournment motion is not carried, as the option was raised by the chairman can, in accordance with the procedure, resume the discussion. Previously, the FC chairman, on behalf of the committee, proposed this 5+2 option. It's because earlier at the PWSC, at the meeting among the FC, ESC and PWSC chairman, that was the conclusion. So the FC chairman proposed that on behalf of the FC. So if this adjournment motion is carried, the chairman will have to consider, under that circumstance, how should a resumption debate be triggered? Well, that's my concern. If the adjournment motion is carried, if the chairman is not going to resume the debate, can other colleagues make such a proposal? According to the rules of procedure, only the mover can move that the debate be resumed. So, if an amendment has been submitted, then we have to continue to handle that amendment. But if the original mover does not move a resumption motion, can other colleagues move such a motion? Theoretically, that's possible. I haven't considered that yet. I mean, to resume the original discussion must be moved by the original mover. Well, Mr. James Toh, the legal advisor, said that he had not considered the issue yet, so it's not for us to discuss here. Well, if the adjournment motion is carried, then we can come back to your question. Well, but the answer will affect members' position on whether or not to support Mr. Kok Him's adjournment motion. Because if the adjournment motion is carried and we cannot resume the debate, then there's no more chance for us to discuss the matter. Well, at that time, I thought that we had a consensus that we would like to complete this as soon as possible so as not to block Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion. But now, with over 1,000 amendments, should we stick to the original consensus? At that meeting, 5 colleagues, plus me, that means 6 altogether, said that we had not formed any consensus on the 5+2 option. Whether or not we can carry the motion under Article 39, I don't know. Even if that is carried, whether or not we can come back and resume our discussion on the 5+2 option, I really don't know. No, my question is procedurally, can other colleagues move a motion that's similar to yours? The legal advisor said that he did not know. How come he did not know? Well, he did not say he did not know. He said that he had not considered that yet. Well, the major principle is like this. The rules of procedure do not have any provision about the original mover not moving a resumption discussion, a resumption debate. Then whether or not other members can move such a motion. I think the rules of procedure might not have foreseen this scenario. So I can think along the line of general principles. That is, so long as the notice, the duration of notice requirement is satisfied, we can discuss. Well, if the original mover does not move a resumption debate, will other members be blocked from moving an assumption? then this is just a trick. It is difficult for us to comment on the motive of individual members. At the end of the day, members have to discuss this. Well, tabled today, or tabled just now, is an adjournment motion, and the decision will reflect the decision of the committee. Other members will have to follow the rules of procedure. They can move another motion. No problem for that. I believe we should consider that. Well, apart from 12 plus 5, you can move 7 plus 3. Don't forget that I'm moving 5 plus 2 in accordance with members' wish only. That's not my individual wish. I can withdraw that proposal if necessary, because that's not my personal suggestion. It's the committee's consensus. Well, Mr. Alberto, this is very important. It will affect our position on Mr. Ip Kok Him's adjournment motion. Now, the reasoning is very simple. If the adjournment motion is passed, so long as the original mover or nobody else is moving an adjournment motion, can Mr. Ip Kok Him's amendment on Article 37 jump the queue? It's not a matter of jumping the queue. He submitted his motion, his amendment, very early. Oh, let me amend my question. So long as the 5 plus 2 procedures are not handled, then Mr. Ip Kok Him's amendment to Article 37 can be discussed, right? My understanding of the rules of procedure is that we should discuss that because he gave notice on the 9th of October. And then on the 19th, at our meeting on the 19th, I made a ruling on the 5 plus 2 option. We did not have any more meetings. Then later, Mr. Ronnie Tong moved another motion, which was also submitted. Because we had not had any meeting after the last one. One more follow-up question. That is, before any resumption, you as the chairman can exercise your discretion to let this committee resolve on the issue of 37A, right? Well, I'm not quite sure about your question. Are you taking away the whole bunch of amendments? And if Mr. Ip Kok Him's adjournment motion is passed, then the concrete amendments to 37A and Mr. Ronnie Tong's related amendments may, under your relaxed power, under the rules of procedure at the moment, be submitted for discussion. Well, I don't know whether you want me to elaborate on your word of relaxed. The rules of procedure are the rules of procedures. Nothing about relaxed or otherwise. I don't want to debate with you. In fact, in October, I explained this several times. I don't know whether you were present at that meeting. Well, if you are not using the word relaxed, then I don't need to respond to your comment about relaxed. I can only tell you that I'll observe the rules of procedure. In fact, Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion was submitted before the 5 plus 2 motion. I thought that there was a consensus, so I'd like to normalize the 5 plus 2 amendment first before going to Mr. Ip Kok Him's. But now over 1,000 amendments have been submitted and colleagues would like to discuss Rule 39. I'll follow the ROP. Mr. Kenneth Leung, Mr. Chairman, for this 5 plus 2 motion, as far as I can remember, at the meeting on the 17th, that was your proposal. But before we have a framework, it is impossible to handle Mr. Ip Kok Him's 37A. So why should we put Mr. Ip's 37A first? The story is, we said we did not yet have a framework. So with no framework, how can we discuss 37A? Without a framework, 37A should not be discussed for the time being. That's my understanding. So, can you, Chairman, tell me whether my understanding is correct or not? If you say I'm wrong, tell me why you think I'm wrong. Mr. Kenneth Leung? Well, let me tell you the background to the story. On the 10th of October, Mr. Ip Kok Him gave notice to add in this item on the 19th of October to amend the FC procedure, PWSC procedure, and ESC procedure. In accordance with the FC procedure, I made a ruling and agreed that that item be added to the item of the 19th of October. And then on the 12th of October, the FC understood my decision.
And then the 17th of October last year, Mr. Chen wrote to say that Mr. Chen Chu-chin, Mr. Wang Yukman, and himself may consider the rule move an amendment to Mr. Yip's motion in accordance with the way of doing things and past practices. So, together with the chairman, vice chairman of the FC and PWSC and ESC, I had a meeting on the 17th of October last year. So we discussed the relevant procedures. Although Section 37 of the Rules of Procedure of the Finance Committee have incorporated Rules 39 and 35 of the Rules of Procedure to the proceedings of the committee in dealing with the motions are subject to the decisions of the committee made from time to time. But because the rules of procedure because FC procedure, public PWSC procedure, and ESC procedure are rather important procedures, and the vice chairman and chairman agree that we should consider Rule 37 regarding giving notice to amend the three procedures. After our discussion on the 17th of October, we decided to propose this option, that is the so-called 5 and 2 option, so that there can be a framework for dealing with such motion and requirements on notice and the way to serve the notice and so forth, and for discussion on the 19th of October. At the meeting dated the 19th of October, the committee agreed that on behalf of members, I move related motion at the meeting dated the 2nd of November. Now, if the committee agreed to adjourn the debate on the 5+2 motion, that means we cannot deal with the consensus as agreed on the 19th of October. That being the case, I will not revive the discussion of that motion again. As to when I will incorporate into the agenda the motions by Mr. Ip Kok Him and Mr. Ronnie Tong proposed on the 19th of October for discussion. It depends on depends on members' views. In other words, I will arrange that we deal with the motion by Mr. Ip Kok Him and then Mr. Ronnie Tong's motion, and then based on members' decision on giving notice to amend a certain rule, I will make the same arrangements, and I will also allow members to move amendments or to give notice to move amendments with appropriate notice. So it seems that under Rule 37, if you do not exercise your discretion, and if we feel that there are ways to improve or change our rules, if we want to have a framework first before we proceed to discuss Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion, then I don't know whether this is the legal advice. Perhaps the legal advisor can comment. The acts of the things that happened in the past 2 months have already negative discretion power of the police or of the chairman, because now I don't know whether my understanding is correct, whether the legal advisor agrees to my interpretation. Legal advisor, as regards whether the FC can negate the decision of the chairman of the FC. Well, so far this has not happened yet. This is on the assumption that the committee can overturn a decision, an effective decision made by a valid decision made by the chairman. Now, in October, the chairman decided not to exercise his discretion under Rule 37 and decided to move a motion, the so-called 5+2 motion for our discussion. This is already on record. We can't say that this doesn't exist, legal advisor. I don't have the minutes with me. But then Mr. Zheng, the chairman, just read out the minutes on this matter. On this matter alone, the chairman did not exercise his discretion, subject to the decisions of the committee made. Now, his act was to allow the decision to be made by this committee. Otherwise, what's the point of our meetings in the past few months? The chairman decided not to exercise his discretion, and he decided to allow the committee to make a collective decision. Mr. Leung, if you remember correctly, I exercised my discretion to allow Ip Kok Him to move his motion. The so-called 5+2 motion is about whether in the future we can regularize such arrangements. I don't want to continue this debate with you, neither do I, but you have been talking about this. Well, you gave up your discretionary power. No, it's not the case. If you do not accept what I said, I cannot change your mind or your view. I said a number of times that I exercised my discretionary power, and that applied to the case of Mr. Ip Kok Him. Well, if back then I thought there was a consensus, we can regularize matters by discussing the 5+2 motion first. It's not as you said, I gave up my discretionary power. I would certainly not do that. I would not forgo my discretionary power as the chairman of the FC. It's not about myself. That's the discretionary power of the chairman. I would not give it up. You have spent your time, Mr. Ronnie Tong. Well, because of the old age allowance, perhaps due to misunderstanding or lack of understanding, the outcome was not really very just. So I'd like to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong. There was indeed a consensus among colleagues, and that was to deal with the notice period first before we deal with Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion. As a result, you put forward the 5+2 motion. Should it be 5+2? There's no consensus, but the consensus was to deal with that framework first. And that's why we had a couple of meetings to debate the 5+2 motion, which is supposed to be a framework. Now, Ip Kwok Him has a motion, moves an adjournment debate. Of course, that motion was moved by you. You, of course, have the power to not to revive the discussion of that motion again. And I'd like to understand from the legal advisor, colleagues may move a similar, not necessarily identical motion, perhaps a 12 plus 5, a 7 plus 5, 9 plus 5, anything. And members who do not agree to that motion can amend it. And according to what you expressed just now, Chairman, let's say there is a new motion, 12 plus 5. You would put it after Mr. Ip Kwok Him's amendment motion. For us who do not agree with Mr. Ip Kwok Him's amendment motion, that would be meaningless. So that would make our objection meaningless. So since you are not going to continue with your motion, and any other similar motion moved by colleagues will certainly be dealt with after Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion. Please clarify this, because that would help us to decide how we're going to vote on the adjournment motion. All right, allow me to answer this question first. This is not really my personal motion. It's not a question of whether I agree to adjourn it or not. Now, if it is my decision, I would have withdrawn it. I can withdraw it. No, there is no need to argue. No, this is not an argument you're asking me. No, my question was for the legal advisor. You're asking me whether I would agree to adjourn the debate. I am telling you that this is not my motion. Can you allow me to finish first before I ask the legal advisor to reply? But you're taking up my time. But what is your question? My question is for the legal advisor. If the chairman doesn't move this 5+2 motion again, and someone among us move a similar motion, say 12 plus 5, then under the rules and according to the chairman's usual handling of things, such a motion will only be dealt with after Mr. Ip Kwok Him's. Our previous consensus was to work out a framework first before we deal with Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion. Is it that the consensus no longer exists? If that's the case, that will have an impact on our considerations in deciding to vote and deciding on how to vote on this adjournment debate. Is my assumption correct, legal advisor or chairman? Can you allow the legal advisor to reply? I already invited the legal advisor to reply, and then you continued to ask questions. Do you want me to give you the floor first? Legal advisor. The order of items on the agenda, well, unless otherwise decided by the committee, usually it will be in the order of when the motion is moved. That means we cannot put a motion to be dealt with before Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion. So this adjournment debate will make it impossible for a motion on the framework to be dealt with before Mr. Ip Kwok Him's. Legal advisor, as I said, unless otherwise decided by the committee, the motions will be handled in accordance with the chronological sequence when the motions are submitted. Mr. Emily Lau. So what Mr. Ron Lee Tong said was true. There was a consensus during the past week of discussions that we deal with the framework. We deal with framework on the notice period first before we deal with Rule 37A. We agreed to that, and it appears that it's not gone. All right, he would like to adjourn this debate. And then you say that after that we will continue to deal with Rule 37A and there will be no framework at all. So we'll go back to your discretionary power. Whereas our previous consensus was not to deal with Rule 37A first. Rather, we have something in the rule in relation to the notice period to have it put in the procedure first, and then you want to adjourn the debate. No, it's not that I want to adjourn the debate. It's not yet voted on. All right, we agreed to deal with the notice period first. Can you give a 5 days notice again, and then we can deal with that framework again? Now, if you say that because the adjournment motion is passed, you won't move a similar motion, because in future there are other things that should be put in this procedure book. We should not just rely on your discretionary power. I hope you recall that was our consensus the other day. I thought that on that day all 6 colleagues had a consensus on the 5+2 motion. So I was asked to move that 5+2 motion, and I was asked to move such a motion on behalf of the committee. Back then I had no objection, but now I see that there are over 1,000 amendments, meaning that there's no consensus. Still, I am handling this, and suddenly there is a member moving a motion under Rule 39. So do I have to deal with it? Chairman, you said that there was a consensus, and then on the 19th of October you put forward a proposal. That's of course possible. It should be voted on by the AFC, and somebody here doesn't agree to your motion and would like to move amendments. Well, we cannot represent everyone. Well, on the 19th, when we met to discuss that, members agreed that I move such a motion. It was agreed, but no one agreed that no one should amend your amendment motion. You can't say that because you are all going to support my amendment, I will move this amendment. That is not the case. The agreement was you move this amendment motion, and anyone who wants to amend your amendment can do so. This is the practice of LegCo. And then any motion agreed to will be put here in the procedure book, and in future anyone, Mr. Zhang, Mr. Wong, whatsoever, will have to comply with the rules. And after that we can deal with Rule 39, 39A. But Mr. Ibrahim has moved a motion under Rule 39, and most members have been given the floor. And are you done, Ms. Emily Lau? I already told you what I was thinking. Mr. Martin Liao, I don't know about this 5+2 consensus. I was not involved. My understanding is that before the consensus was arrived at, the chairman exercised his discretionary power in relation to Mr. Ibrahim's motion. Regardless of consensus arrived later, it cannot overturn a decision made by the chairman before that, using his discretionary power. If you think that the consensus can replace the chairman's discretionary decision, I'd like to know where does that rationale comes from. So I think our discussion here is pointless. Ms. Sit-Ho, I'd just like to sort out what is going to happen today. We have amendments on the notice period and other. One motion we are very concerned about is the amendment to be moved by Mr. Ip Kwok Him to Rule 39.7, and that is we can only move one motion or one amendment to the motion. Now, if we lose in the subsequent voting on the adjournment debate, I'd like to know whether you are going to deal with Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion under 37A at once, or will you fix another date and allow members to move other amendments to Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion under 37A? And one more question, Chairman. I'd like to ask Mr. Ip, since we all know that the two amendments are very controversial, rather than moving an adjournment debate, can he withdraw his amendment to Rule 37A? Well, we're only here to talk about 5+2. There is nothing to talk. There is nothing on our agenda to discuss. Mr. Ronnie Tong and Mr. Ip Kwok Him's amendments. I just read out the meeting arrangement. Yes, if we pass the motion under Rule 39, then I will act according to our rules and fix another date to deal with other motions.
And then you'll be given 2 working days to move amendments. Well, I was there when you read out the note. So you asked me once again. Yes, just to confirm it, okay, so that I don't have to read it out to you again. That's a very long record in the minutes. That's not a minutes. So there will be another meeting to deal with 37A. How much notice will be allowed for us to move amendments according to the rules before I fix a date? That means you have 5 days or 2 days to move an amendment. Let's say I want to have a meeting on the 11th of January. Then 2 days prior to that, the 8th of January. This is just an assumption. We're not going to do this on the 11th of January. Because the government will be asking us to approve certain funding applications. And Mr. Yip has already indicated that he's not going to stand in the way. So there will be no early cutoff to prevent your amendments. Can you ask whether Mr. Yip would withdraw his 37A motion? Well, I don't know. I have to ask him. Mr. Alan Leung, who hasn't spoken, I want to draw a line. Let's deal with this Rule 39 motion first. We've been talking about certain hypothetical situations. So after Mr. Alan Leung and Mr. Albert Chan have raised the questions, I'll ask Mr. Yip to answer. Or would you rather answer the question now? Okay, you wait. Mr. Alan Leung. Thank you, Chairman. Let me clarify that I'm not using my 3 minutes to talk about the Rule 39 motion. But, well, it's just that the time limit is the same. It's also 39. It's also 3 minutes for each member. We said that once Mr. Yip's adjournment motion is passed, and certain things will follow as a consequence. Irrespective of the reasons why, Chairman, you raised this or you proposed this motion of 5+2, there are 6 Chairman and Deputy Chairman, PWSC, ESC, and FC Chairman and Deputy Chairman had a discussion. They are of the view that, logically speaking, we should have the framework first before we discuss Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion to amend the rules. So Mr. Martin New's question about your discretionary power being overruled is irrelevant. The logic is that through the 8 to 10 hours discussion in this committee, and it's widely accepted because the 6 chairman and vice and deputy chairman who have a very clear mind and who have looked at this logically. And that's why we have spent the 10 hours or so to discuss the matter. So I'm very surprised that Mr. Yip Kwok Him would like to move an adjournment motion today. There are 2 consequences. First, it would overrule the decision which has been reached by the 6 chairman or deputy chairman who have considered that in a logical manner. And we are slapping our own face because we have wasted 8 to 10 hours in charting a way forward. I would have thought that the 6 of you are very reasonable. You should have the framework established, and then on that basis, how Mr. Yip Kwok Him's suggestions or proposals can be handled. If you vote in favor of the adjournment motion, then you are slapping the 6 chairman or deputy chairman on their face, and you are also slapping your own face. Whether this logic stands or not doesn't depend on how many people support the motion to have a 5+2 framework. So when you vote in favor of this, you are eating your own words. So you are also slapping the 6 chairman and deputy chairman on their faces. As I've said, I exercise my discretionary power to allow Mr. Yip Kwok Him to move his motion. I already abided by the 5-day rule. Whether the 5+2 is passed or not, well, other members may wish to move amendments. But because there was no precedent, I said the notice period would be 2 days because I allowed the motion to be moved with a 5-day notice. I said well, I should allow amendments to be moved within 2 days. People understood. I don't know whether you understood, but let me explain again. On that day, I said I already exercised my discretionary power to allow Mr. Yip Kwok Him's motion to be tabled, and then I will also adhere to the 5+2 rules. I have to check the records. I cannot remember this. I did not recall whether I said we should have the framework set first before we dealt with Mr. Yip's motion. But some people suggested that we should have a standard, we should have a practice established. So I thought that we might as well do that first. And then there was a suggestion that I should be moving the 5+2 motion on behalf of the FC. That's not my personal motion. Well, as for slapping on the face, well, I don't mind. I can turn the other cheek if necessary. Next, we have Mr. Albert Chan. Mr. James Toh. A point of order. According to Rule 39, a member, when speaking on a proposal in the committee, may move without notice the thing proposed. It should be Miss Helena Wong, and then me, and then Mr. Chan Galo. It's not Mr. Yip's turn. Why suddenly we don't follow the speaking order? It's not what Rule 39 says. I would like to ask the legal advisor to offer advice. A member, when speaking on a proposal in the committee, is the term of Miss Helena Wong, and then me. Mr. Chan Galo is not here, and then Mr. Kwok. Why all of a sudden Mr. Yip Kwok Him can move a motion in accordance with Rule 39? Why? We have to follow the speaking order. Are you also exercising your discretionary power? When it's time for Mr. Yip Kwok Him to speak, he can certainly speak and propose the adjournment. Legal advisor, Chairman. Yeah, that can be the literal reading of the rule. I will have to ask the clerk to confirm this. There was a member who raised a point of order. Since this has been raised, and the chairman will certainly give the member the chance to speak. Whether the member was speaking on the proposal, that depends on the content of the speech, and that is up to the chairman to rule. According to Rule 38, rather 31. The decision of the chairman shall be final. I noticed that the chairman allowed the member to speak and to move the motion. We know that the FC's rules are flexible to a certain extent, and so there were members who claimed that they were not using the 3 minutes allowed when they spoke. Before we proceed to discuss Rule 39, some members want to raise questions and allow that. Mr. Yip Kok Hin a moment ago raised a point of order, and then he moved a motion under Rule 39. Last time, it was not the term of Mr. Lee Choi-yan to speak, and he moved his motion in accordance with 39, and we had a discussion on the Rule 39 motion. And I don't know whether that happened with the previous chairman, but I did this and no member queried me. It's not your time to speak. Well, you have to rule on whether this is in line with Rule 39, because he was not speaking on a proposal. Mr. Alan Leung, have you finished? Mr. Albert Chan, Chairman. Well, if you want to apply this rule, it would apply to all members in future. If everyone wants something out of this. I just want to clarify a point. Mr. Yip Kok Hin proposed this motion to adjourn. Mr. Tam Yu Chung earlier told reporters that filibustering will be resolved within the current term. I wonder whether this German motion and also the amendment of rules of procedure to end filibustering would be strategically linked to one another. I have a few procedural questions, whether the clerk, our chairman, or the legal advisor may wish to clarify. Concerning your 5+2 motion, I have moved 480 amendments. As for Mr. Yip's original motion, I have already filed some of my amendments. Not all. There are more than 1,000, and I filed some of my amendments. I will file more if necessary. We are concerned about the notice. We don't want to have the timetable set or a line drawn, preventing further amendments to be filed. Because of the limited number of amendments, in 2 or 3 days, we will have handled all the amendments, or new amendments cannot be submitted, and then as a result, the rules of procedures will be amended very quickly. Now that, Mr. Chairman, you have accepted the German motion to be moved, I would like to know what will follow, and also the constraints that may arise. And I'm concerned whether we, who would like to move more amendments, can we move more amendments before we vote on Mr. Yip's motion? Because I have moved my amendments. Can other members move amendments to my amendments? I would like to seek a clarification here. Clerk, to the committee. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, it's a term for the clerk to answer Mr. Albert Chan's questions. If you want to speak, please press the button first. Well, whether I draw a line or not, it's just a question of a gentleman agreement. It doesn't mean that when the clerk answers Mr. Albert Chan's questions, you can butt in. Clerk? Mr. Leung, please wait until the clerk has answered Mr. Albert Chan's question, and then you can raise your questions. Don't be angry. In answering Mr. Albert Chan's question, I would like to say that, as the chairman has put it, it would depend on the outcome of the decision on Mr. Yip Kok Him's motion, and then time will be allowed for amendments to be submitted. So, in other words, the chairman would set a time limit for members to submit amendments to Mr. Yip Kok Him's motion. As for whether there can be further amendments to the original amendments, as we have said, that the rules of procedures are important matters, and amendments must be clear-cut. And so it was decided that amendments to amendments will not be allowed. Well, we have a 2-day limit for amendments, so it's difficult to allow amendments to amendments. You can move amendments, but you cannot move an amendment to another amendment. Let's clear about the procedures. Mr. Tam Yu-chung is so sure that this can be resolved within this year. I'm afraid that there is already a consensus reached with chairman of committees and panels. Well, I don't think I have talked to Mr. Tam lately. You speak to people on the street. Mr. Albert Chan, you also speak on the street. Mr. Leung Kok-hong did the same. Mr. Tam did the same. I cannot really answer such questions. Well, understood, but the chairman's discretion is important, and how the chairman interprets the rules is also important. I think I have filed 200 odd amendments. There's still 1,000 more which have yet to be filed. I want to be clear about this. If this German motion is passed today, can you tell us what would happen next? Step 1, step 2, step 3? Please don't make things ambiguous and allow something taking us by surprise, like what the government did last time. We don't want to have things slip through. But we have said this very time and again, very clearly. But you still keep on asking the same questions. I can answer you again. Not that I don't want to repeat the answer. Can you provide the steps 1, 2, 3? Well, I'm older than you, and I'm less clever than you. I don't know whether the Rule 39 motion will be passed. Let's suppose that it's passed, and if that's the case, we would identify the date, a date that would not hinder government FC applications, and that is apart from regular meetings. We would find a slot, and then we can discuss Mr. Yip Kok Him and Mr. Ronnie Tong's motions. And then the 2 days will start to count for amendments. So you can start to prepare your amendments, and I don't know when that meeting will take place, because it's definitely not going to happen on the 11th of January. So you are certainly going to have time to prepare your 1,000 amendments. I cannot tell you the steps one by one, because I have not been able to identify the slots. Well, I'm not talking about days, but of the steps. I have already told you to the best of my ability. Can that help you understand the steps that would follow? So I will have time to submit my amendments. That's for sure. That's clear. Mr. Raymond Wong. Well, this is becoming more and more ambiguous. I'm clear, but I'm not clear. Well, I'm even less clever than you, Mr. Tommy Cheung. We're talking about the rules for the FC, ESC, PWSC. And that the motion is about the notice requirement for moving motions. So we are going to have an adjournment debate on this matter, correct? So you want to play a game here? Well, so can I.
Now with over 400 amendments queuing up, and you are now blocking me. Well, you should let me move my amendments first, and then I can also move an amendment motion. Why is it that he can do something that I can't do? Well, after his adjournment motion is carried, I can still move thousands of amendments. If you want to play tricks, let's all play tricks. You take the lead to tighten the freedom of speech of members. Who is wasting whose time? He can move an adjournment motion. I can also do so. I can move an adjournment motion on each and every motion and amendment. They formed a consensus among themselves, the six of them, the six chairmen and deputy chairmen. But after carrying his adjournment motion, we can no longer move our amendments, whether it's 6 plus 2, 3 plus 7, or what not. Anyway, if they can play tricks on us, we can also play tricks on them. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Mr. Wong Yok Man is speaking. You will be the next one to speak. Well, all of them are thieves. If you want to move these tricks, well, we'll accompany you. I can do filibustering throughout all the next 4 years. Mr. Wong Yok Man, well, I have 3 minutes to speak. I still have 30 seconds to go. What sort of a legislature is this? You take the lead to take away the freedom of speech of members, and you're so happy about this. You would like to play tricks. You continue to move a German motion. It doesn't matter. I will keep you company. It doesn't matter. Even if you outnumber us, you bought ballots, you bought votes, you brought in triad members. It doesn't matter. I'm really worried about you. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Mr. Chairman, I now formally tell you this. I hope that you can exercise your discretion to allow me to amend Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion. I'll write my amendment to you. Well, I can give you prior notice. My amendments will be related to 1 minute to 10,000 minutes. All right, I'm formally notifying you. The speaking time will range from 1 minute to 10,000 minutes. He is moving this adjournment motion. Adjournment by how long? Well, he did not mention how many minutes. Well, I can amend his motion. I can amend his motion such that the amendments will read adjourned for 1 minute, adjourned for 2 minutes, blah, 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 until adjourned for 10,000 minutes. Well, you have 3 minutes to speak. After members have all spoken, we'll make a decision on paragraph 39. Well, but I can amend his adjournment motion. You can exercise your discretion. Am I correct? Yes. I formally move that we postpone the voting on this adjournment motion. I can't see how you can move that motion by making a detour. Legal advisor, last time you were very fair. Please display your fairness again to me. Let me tell you, I don't trust you. I don't trust the legal advisor. I don't trust you. Tell me. Well, speaking is speaking. I think when we speak to the legal advisor and to the secretariat, why should I trust him? Why should I trust him? It is Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's turn to speak. Well, in private, I also keep a good relationship with him. I'm speaking in public now that I don't trust him. I repeat, I don't trust him. He insults his so-called courtesy. Can you allow the legal advisor to respond? Oh, I'm not correct. Please speak. According to the rules of procedure and the FC procedure, when an adjournment motion is moved, no amendment will be allowed. Otherwise, it will be out of order. It's out of order. Chairman, under the rules of procedure and the FC procedure, there's no provision for a postponement. What about if I move an adjournment motion to his adjournment motion? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, the legal advisor, has already answered your question. He has not answered my question. He has answered your question. Can I move an adjournment motion to his adjournment motion? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, the floor is not yours at the moment. Now, in accordance with paragraph 39 of the FC procedure, Mr. Ip Kok Him moves that the discussion be adjourned. In accordance with paragraph 39, members can speak on the motion, but each member may only speak once, and the speaking time must not exceed the time decided by the committee. Due to time constraint, well, he has 3 minutes. He can answer you if he wishes. I cannot force officials or members to answer questions. I'm chairing the meeting. Ms. Sito, I can't hear you. Well, my microphone was not on. If you said this earlier, I would not have interrupted you. Each member should not speak for more than 3 minutes. Any member who wishes to speak should press his speak button. Mr. Ip Kok Him. Mr. Chairman, today I'm moving this adjournment motion because at first, when the so-called 5+2 arrangement was decided by the chairman and deputy chairman of the FC, PwC, and ESC, that was the development. But now some members are resorting to another type of filibustering on this 5+2 option. And in the whole process, nothing was discussed about the 5+2 option. And they used 37 to move over 1,000 amendments, such that the period of notice required would range from 24 hours to a very, very long period. They said that we are thieves. In fact, they're also thieves. Mr. Wong Yok Man, please be seated. It is now Mr. Ip Kok Him's turn to speak. Please do not speak. Please do not disturb the meeting. Mr. Wong Yok Man, if you continue to speak, I'll have to order you to leave the chamber. Mr. Ip Kok Him. And just now some members said the 5+2 was widely accepted. If that is the case, it won't be necessary for them to do filibustering. If we continue like that, it will be a waste of the electoral's time. Therefore, we must use the loopholes of the ROP to stop this from happening. Well, his remarks are not related to the adjournment motion. Mr. Chairman, I'm telling you that Mr. Ip Kok Him's remarks are not related to his adjournment motion. I've heard you. Let me chair the meeting. Mr. Ip Kok Him, well, I absolutely consider my remarks relevant. I think what they said was irrelevant. Now, within a short period of time, we would not be able to obtain consensus on the procedures. So I'm moving this adjournment motion to allow more time for reaching a consensus and for further discussion, such that the time of the legislature would not be wasted. I believe after the adjournment motion is carried, my amendment to 37A will have a chance to be tabled and discussed. Well, let me give you, please give me back some time, because just now he was speaking. I hope that members can support my adjournment motion. As for Ms. Sitho's remark of whether or not I would withdraw my motion, I hope that we can have a discussion on 37A. Mr. Ronnie Tong said that our starting points were different. But if we can form a consensus, then we can reconvene the discussion with a similar starting point. Well, if my motion can be discussed, I can consider Ms. Sitho's remark. I hope that today members can support my adjournment motion. Well, let me clarify with you. I did not hear you clearly. If Mr. Ronnie Tong withdraws his motion, you also withdraw your motion? No. I will consider whether or not my amendment can be discussed at further meetings. Because just now some members were playing tricks again. Well, if we can form a consensus, we can have a common starting point. Mr. Ronnie Tong. Well, Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Ip Kok Him's remarks were not very fair. Although some colleagues have moved to over 1,000 amendments, those amendments are meaningful and substantial. Because apart from the 5+2 consensus, we have other suggestions for this notice requirement. And we're talking about legitimate notice period. Well, even for the LegCo meeting, the notice requirement is 12+5. So our amendments are totally reasonable and should be discussed. Whether or not a consensus can be formed, under the present circumstances, it's difficult to reach a consensus. But if our discussion and debate are to be stopped, that is unfair, unreasonable, and procedurally unfair. Well, whether or not I am to withdraw my motion such that another motion can be moved, well, Mr. Ip, if you suggest this to me on another occasion, I can consider your suggestion. But given 3 minutes, it's really difficult for me to make a decision. So if Mr. Ip so wishes, I'm willing to sit down with him on other occasions to discuss his suggestion. This adjournment motion gives people the feeling that they're forcing this upon us. They're not giving us proper and reasonable notice. No matter what, the chairman and deputy chairman of the 3 committees had discussed the matter and decided that there should be a framework first before we proceed to Mr. Ip's amendment. That's reasonable. Well, we agree that there should be a framework. We have not yet had consensus on whether or not it should be 5+2. We can continue to discuss that. Why is it that members cannot discuss and debate other proposals on notice requirement under our rules of procedure? Maybe they also agree to the 5+2 proposal. If so, then the debate may not be very long. I think they should not launch broad brush criticisms at us by saying that we're wasting the meeting's time. That's unfair. Mr. Wang Yongman, apart from the 1,000-odd amendments from the three of us, other members have also submitted amendments. Well, his adjournment motion is very clear. The objective is very clear. He would like to prohibit first stage filibustering. He is trying to block filibustering, and then he may proceed to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Members of the public of Hong Kong understand this very well. LegCo members are killing off their own functions. They claim they were wasting public money. Maybe in a moment Mr. Wong Kok Heng will come out and use his penmanship to criticize us again. I repeated over 90 times that all things have their beginning and end. You should leave it to the electors and voters to decide, to show their to voice their mind. Well, they make use of their majority to force things upon us. With the majority, they should be more humble. They tried to pluck every outlet. All right, if you force this upon me, it doesn't matter. I will die together with you. Don't treat us as 3-year-old children. Don't fool us. For 5+2, since you say that this is your sincere proposal, we're willing to sit down with you and discuss. You're talking about notice requirement. I can also discuss that. You can have a consensus among the 6 chairman and deputy chairman. We can also have our own consensus. It's just that they did not propose 360 or 480. But the purpose is the same. As Mr. Ronnie Tong said, you must not prevent people from moving 2+6 or 3+7, as Mr. Ronnie Tong said. They are trying to pluck all our outlets. Well, if you're doing things so absolutely, we'll fight back. So long as we are alive, we'll continue to struggle with you. Not for ourselves, but for all LegCo members and all future LegCo members. We would like to protect their freedom of speech. Full stop. Mr. To? Mr. Chairman, I'm speaking on behalf of the Labour Party. In fact, in the LegCo, there are only a few forces, or muscles, so to speak. One is the Finance Committee. Why are we discussing this today? Originally, Mr. Ip has moved an amendment to 37A by restricting the number of amendments to be moved by members to 1. Each member can only move 1 motion. We would like to put on record our strong views on his proposal. Even after a motion is carried, we would like to clarify certain aspects for the administration to follow up. It's just like the XRL project. We moved numerous motions, although none of them was passed. And then we asked the administration to follow up on the rehousing and in situ rehousing of Choi Yun Chun villages. So first of all, we cannot accept that only one motion can be moved by each member. Secondly, indeed, the FC procedure has always been very relaxed and lenient, with a lot of room for discretion on the part of the chairman. Well, this is something left over from the colonial days. At that time, FC meetings only lasted less than an hour. Now, this cannot continue now because the whole situation has become much more complicated. In fact, all procedures should be reviewed comprehensively. Mr. Chairman, here in this committee, the majority rules. That's not proper because we cannot protect the room of speech of the minority and the smaller political parties. I think we should safeguard their freedom of speech as well.
We should allow the Committee on Procedures to discuss these things and for approval by the Council. Well, for the minority here, even though he's the only one from his party here, his freedom of speech or his right to speech should be protected. So I also find it hard to accept that we should approve an amendment to our rules here. I'm of the view that the Committee on Procedures, COP, and the Council should be the right forums to deal with such things. Mr. Albert Chen, if we want to amend the rules, this is a very serious matter and should go through very stringent examination and deliberation. And then in a rush, Ip Kwok Him proposed a rather crude motion. And then chairman and vice chairman of the three committees concerned had a meeting and decided to make it not so ugly, even if you want to cut filibustering. So we move a number of amendments. And now, because of political motive, he wants to stop this as well. He would not even accept a consensus by the chairman and deputy chairman of the three committees concerned. I'd like to let the public know that this is very brutal. Well, when we want to amend rules, usually we have to ask the relevant committee to study in detail so that there can be at least some consensus, although there won't be agreement by all, at least it should be acceptable to some members of the opposition camp before the rules will be amended. For more than 2 decades, since we first had direct elections, we've never seen such a case where the majority have totally ignored the procedural justice to bully the minority. They have no regard as to whether it is appropriate or reasonable, and they would like to force its amendment through. Even the wording of the motion was not smooth. It did not come with an English version. So if we look at our history, right from 1991 when we first had direct elections, for more than 20 years, we have never had such an occasion. There's a because of the rule by DAB, by local communists, together with C.Y. Leung coming to power, who is a local communist. This is how he governs Hong Kong. I don't know what other loyalists, in particular those not in C.Y. Leung's camp, think about this. If you are not supporters of the Chinese liaison office, what is your view? As someone with some conscience and with regard for procedural justice, I feel that you should feel ashamed for yourselves. How can you represent the business sector? How can you still remain as legislators? So I'd like to put on record my severe anger and also my condemnation. Mr. Leung, I don't think it's necessary for me to say time and again that the FC as well as ESC and PWSC under the FC have to approve hundreds of millions of public money every year to monitor public expenditure is a very important or sacred, if I say, duty of this council. If there was no one from this council who attempted to curtail our power to monitor the use of public funding, we will not have this debate at all if Mr. Yip had not tried to do so. So I think Mr. Leung Kwok Hong's motion on point of order had a point, or Mr. To's motion on point of order had a point, but after all, I'm not the mover. If he doesn't insist, I've no reason to insist on that point of order on his behalf. But I'd like to say that the chairman's discretionary power should not be exercised at whim or arbitrarily, because if that's the case, then it may become abuse of power. If we vote for the adjournment motion, then this very important motion to deal with rules of the Finance Committee or subcommittees to monitor public expenditure cannot be debated. It's a very serious matter, and the 6 chairmen and deputy chairmen came to a consensus with very good reason and justifications. To vote for the adjournment debate would be grave disrespect to their decision, and it's also a waste of the time in coming to this consensus. So I hope that members can oppose Mr. Ip Kwok Him's amendment motion moved under Rule 39. And we should continue to discuss whether it should be 5+2 as proposed by the chairman of with X plus Y, so on and so forth. Does any member wish to speak? Mr. Emily Lau, Chairman. I speak to oppose Mr. Ip Kwok Him's motion. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the arrangements of leave requirement. If somebody wants to amend the FC procedures, well, as you said, chairman and deputy chairman of FC, PWSC, and ESC agreed to discuss how the rule should be amended first. As you said, you moved a proposal. A proposal can be amended, and members have given notice to move amendments according to the rules here. Mr. Ip Kwok Him has no respect for these members, and he would like to cut short brutally this discussion. The discussion started last meeting, and he has become impatient, and he is asking for this to halt. This is very barbarian. No matter how many amendments we have, they are all tabled. Then let's follow the timetable, and then we deal with the amendments one by one. In a civilized council, we have to respect the rules. You can't say that, well, we agree to this arrangement and all of a sudden I don't like the way you are behaving. I will not play with you anymore. How can you do that? We all know that you're in the majority. You want to bully the minority. But we should also take care of justice. Some members here on the opposite side claim that they would uphold justice. So we are dealing with the amendments according to this procedure book. And we are in the middle of doing it. All of a sudden, somebody wants to cut short the discussion. Now, if the debate is adjourned, can we debate it again? And according to the chairman, he will not move. He may not move a similar motion again. Of course, somebody else can do so. But again, he may cut short our discussion again. There are inadequacies in the rule, and the process of deliberation may be long, but still we should stick to the rules. Why are we acting so barbarously? If we have rules, we have rules to act as check and balance to CY Leung's government. And if you would like to remove even this very minor power we possess, how can it be so easy as that? Mr. Porter, I find it regrettable, and I'm also very disappointed that we have degraded to an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth here. Actually, in the past, it is the minority who has been bullying the majority. So, for the motion under 39 by Mr. Ip, it would not be in the way of any member trying to move amendments to para 37A. Or to filibuster. If members want to filibuster, they can still continue to do so. I think Mr. Ip's proposal to deal with para 37A first is to go for the easier way first. And then some experienced members, i.e. the chairman and deputy chairman, thought that there was a better way. And at first, the members felt that it was a good choice and decided to go along that way. And suddenly, accidents occurred. There were rodents and pests, so on and so forth. And we decided to revert to the previous road. And if members like to have a rather rugged and rocky way instead, there is no one to stop you. So you should not lump the discussion of 37A and 39 together, unless your way is to block, unless you want to block every road. This is not a fair accusation to Mr. Ip. Even if we pass the adjournment motion under 39, you still have plenty of chance to filibuster when we discuss para 37.9. Please do not confuse the decision we are going to make under para 39, and please accuse us in front of the public that we are curtailing your right to speak. No, this is not the right. This is not the truth. I think it is time we make appropriate amendments to the rule. Any parliament who comes into this deadlock should do something about it, and we should learn from the experience of the U.S. Parliament. They have so many years of history, and we can also decide whether we should defend Rule 37.9, and please don't be so extreme, be so far-fetched to say that we are suppressing the minority using the motion under 39. Mr. Griffin, I oppose Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion. I have prepared amendment already. And Mr. Paul Jia asked whether we are trying to block Mr. Ip Kok Him's way, and then there is still plenty of room for filibustering when we tackle the motion under 37A. I think Mr. Ip would like to further tighten legislators' room of expression as representatives of the people here. In this, we would like to monitor the government with the limited freedom of expression we have here. So, if there is no framework to discuss, if there is no framework, it would be logical if we have some framework before we deal with Mr. Ip's proposed amendment to under 37A. My proposal is 9 plus 5. It's true that if we have notice requirement, then we can consider things in a calm manner, and I cannot accept Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion to adjourn this debate. Mr. Paul Jia referred to other jurisdictions. Many commentators and people who are concerned about constitution and political development in Hong Kong have pointed out this, that we quote from other jurisdictions because they have a government formed by universal suffrage. In the U.S., if a certain number of signatures from members of parliament or congressmen agree to adjourn a certain debate, that is acceptable, but they have universal suffrage. But here is not the case. Will you accept that? Mr. Ip would like to restrict our freedom of expression in the FC by means of his amendment, so I will vote against his adjournment motion. Does any other members wish to speak? Dr. Kwok Kaki? Not many of us want to speak. The reason is simple. Because the voting result will be a miniature of what's happening in this council. Paul Jia says there is the minority bullying the majority. Well, we have half of our members being FC members. They were returned by, some of them returned by hundreds of electors only. They returned by the minority voters, and yet they can bully us. In this council, we cannot move for private members' bill. It will be subject to split voting. And with the support of the pro-establishment camp, members or the government can get all its bills passed. Some call this rubbish council, and perhaps to some extent it is, but it's not because of us. All legislators should defend their rights, but here we engage in self-mutilation. We curtail our own powers. The only power we have here is to control government spending. We hope that there can be some amendment to government's proposals, funding proposals, before they are here. Well, this is just a very, very minor power, minor influence we have, and yet we want to destroy this influence we have. if all government motions and proposals have to be passed, if all proposals by the government to waste public money have to be approved here, then we should just allow what Mr. Ip Kok Him wants to move under paragraph 37A. It only happens in totalitarian state, in, for example, the mainland under the Communist Party. But this is not something the community wants to see. And that's why a few days ago, so many members of the public came out in the rally. I rarely took part in filibustering, but for members who have chosen to do so, I'm sure they have their good justifications and they are supported by many voters or members of the public. But if Mr. Ip Kok Him's motion is carried, then there is nothing more FC and the Council can do. The government can do whatever it likes, very brutally, even very draconian, very bad proposals can be approved.
Ms. Claudia Mould, well, originally I didn't want to speak. I lost my voice after the New Year rally. But having heard Mr. Paul Chair, well, I understand what is meant by the squandron politics and the thief calling other people to catch the thief. And Dr. Kwok Kake has already told us who are the real minority, the financial constituencies, and what we are doing here. I should be able to speak 15 minutes because I have moved an amendment. Last night, I make some preparation, I prepare a speech, and now I don't have to give the speech. All of a sudden, you, Chairman, you exercise your discretion to allow the motion to be moved. This Council should abide by our own rules. But your rules are only applied when things are what you wish. So all of a sudden we have this adjournment motion. What's that mean? What's that mean? As a new legislator, I heard very hard for 5 minutes and I didn't quite understand. But it all boils down to this. Why all of a sudden we have this? It's really a trick played by the loyalists. It's trying to cut the filibustering. It's an attempt to cut the discussion. You have been asking us to follow our rules, and you said that you can exercise discretion. You can ask the clerk to respond. You can ask the legal advisor to advise. I'm an elected council, and I've heard you talking about the rules as so-and-so is not here. But ultimately, Chairman, you have discretionary power. It's not that if we apply this rule this time, we have to apply it in the same way next time. No, it's not like that. You have discretion. You are setting a dangerous precedent because if you do this today, I just don't quite see that we'll be able to speak and argue based on reasons. I don't want the people to take it out on you or the legal advisor. According to the legal advisor, we cannot adjourn the adjournment motion. What is not disallowed is allowed. As a lay person, that's what I understand the rule to be. Why can't we adjourn the adjournment motion? Mr. Wu Chi-wai. This is a motion of adjournment. Mr. Ip Kok Him gives me the impression that he is trying to be a bad guy. you propose 5+2 notice requirement, Chairman, and there are amendments from the Pan Democrats, and we all propose amendments, and they are all within the this comparable rules for the council meeting, because for the council meeting is 12+5, even for Mr. Albert Chan's amendments. The first one is 6 whole day plus 1 hour. It's not very different from the rules applicable to council meetings. So why is it that there's a German motion, and if we do this, we return to the basic first step. We can file 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 amendments, so that the amendment to Rule 37A cannot be passed. So this only goes to show that you can't even wait for all of us to go through the motion in accordance with our rules. And it's not very different from what your proposal is, Mr. Chairman. If you look at our amendments, I mean, they are not very different from your motion. We want to have a notice period set, say 5+2, because previously no notice is required. So we want to have rules established in this council for our deliberations. And now we end up with this German motion, and we go back to square one. So in this council, the pro-establishment members, the loyalists, will not even wait for the procedure to be followed through. And not even for amendments which are similar to the motion moved by the chairman. So the loyalists are trying to take away the very limited power that we have now. This is really meaningless. So I oppose this motion. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Raymond Chan, Chairman, friends, today we oppose to Mr. Yip Kwok Him's German motion. The Pan Democrats are very unhappy. It's not that without the amendment we will not be able to make use of the 5+2 the route to filibuster. Not in accordance with Mr. Porcher. We can still do the filibustering in respect of Rule 37A. We can do it 10 times more, 20 times more. I think Pan Democrats should wake up. Whether it's the minority bullying the majority or the majority bullying the minority. Well, we thought we should move 10,000 amendments. Now we can move the tens of thousands of amendments. And all 27 Pan Democrats should remember today. Well, you might have a reservation about filibustering, but now you have no choice but to exercise your only power left to fight back. The 6 chairman and deputy chairman came to this consensus, and that is we should set the notice requirement first, and then we deal with the amendment on 37A. And then the chairman said there was no consensus, and that's a hypothetical question. We don't know whether he's going to move the motion again. There are 6 chairman and deputy chairman, 6 very experienced colleagues who agreed that we should deal with the notice requirement before we handle the amendment on Rule 37A. And members agreed. But it doesn't mean that all the 64 members who are not chairman or vice chairman of the committees would agree on the motion, the original motion. Why is it that you're not now considering something quite different when amendments have been moved? You thought it would be quick, we can deal with the 5+2 quickly, and then Mr. Yip's road ahead. Mr. Yip will have a clear road ahead. The consensus of U6 is correct. There should be the order as suggested. We have the framework discussion first, and then we talk about the amendment to Rule 37A. And now you want to adopt a mentality that is how you win, how we lose. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Tam Yu-chung, Chairman. They are trying to pass off illogical arguments as reasons, and they think that if they are in the minority, they can insult other people. They can call us barbarians or squadrons, and they are accusing us of bullying the minority. But it seems that the minority is allowed to bully the majority, and we want to be accommodating. If what you say is not like, we allow you to speak. We talk reason. We don't criticize people. So the majority have been very rational and accommodating. Coming to the adjournment motion, how often have we raised this? The Pan-Democrats frequently propose adjournment motions. If you say that we suddenly want to cut the discussion suddenly, what about your motions? How should we describe your adjournment motions? Well, to be honest, we are all in favor of monitoring the spending of public funds, but we are against dragging Hong Kong into a state of no development. Coming to the 5+2 requirement, we have talked about it. Whether it's Mr. Yip Kok Kim or the DAB as a whole, we all agree that there should be a 5-day notice period and then 2 days for amendments. We will accept it. But in the past few hours, and also in the last meeting, during the discussion, we have come to realize that there are elements, there are people who want to drag our feet. The Pan-Democrats were involved in the discussion of framework, and still you want to filibuster and drag our feet. We are very disappointed. That's why we have moved the adjournment motion. Well, I think the Pan-Democrats are also having a difficult time because they are dragged down by some bad elements within you. They suffer a lot, but they cannot be honest and come clean, and they have to attack the DAB. It's difficult for them because they cannot speak what they really feel. So they have my sympathy. Anyway, please support Mr. Yip Kok Kim's adjournment motion. Mr. Raymond Wong, you have already spoken. Mr. Wong, do you ask me to speak? No, you mentioned you called my name. I wanted to tell you that it's not your time to speak. Mr. Leung Kong, please be seated. Mr. Leung Kong. You can please press the button. Mr. Leung Kok-hong. Well, you are the majority. Why? Well, you all slip in through the hole for dogs. I don't want to insult our own colleagues. What are you talking about? Majority, minority. I've already criticized you already. If we count the votes, you should be the one doing the filibustering. I won't criticize you. What do you mean by majority? And how can you speak it with so much emphasis? Get a few $100 million first. Fewer people attended your activities, your protests. Mr. Leung Kok-hong. Mr. Leung Kok-hong. And when you talk about buying votes, it's a criminal matter. Please don't accuse other members of buying votes. Mr. Raymond Wong, it's not the time for you to speak. They said we took monies from Americans. Well, we haven't said anything about taking money. Please speak on Rule 39. The Communist Party is taking money from the Americans. The communists are begging the U.S. not to appreciate the U.S. dollar, or not to ask for the appreciation of renminbi. The CCP, the Communist Party members all have their sons and grandsons going to the U.S. and become U.S. citizens. Where did Bo Guaguac go for his studies? Their sons and grandsons are all going to the U.S. The CCP is trying to establish a branch in the U.S. So you accuse me of taking money from the Americans. What kind of business was Mr. Bo Xilai running? Or where did the money of his wife go? Tam Yu Chung, you say you are the majority. If you go for direct election, you are certainly not the majority. Does any other member wish to speak? Do we have another speaker? Mr. Albert Ho, Chairman. Those who listen to our debate through the broadcast would know who is in the right, who is in the wrong. This council structure is undemocratic and unjust. That's why some people can always have the majority, and they can make decisions which are not in public interest or which are not just. This is the brutality exercised by the majority. When the Article 23 legislation was proposed, notwithstanding the overwhelming objection, it almost became reality. If we have our members return through a just and fair system, and if we have equal representation, then we can vote without forcing anyone to make use of the only room of for maneuver in the rules of procedure in carrying out a struggle. Yes, we don't want to do this, but we are forced to do this. Mr. Tam Yu Chung's manners would force us to do this, both in this council and outside. The more shameless you are, the more angry people become. It doesn't matter. Just speak as much as you like. If you have the support of the people, you don't have to pay people $250, $300 to join your protests. Our supporters not only join us, they also donate money. The participating organizations all get donations. The scholarism got a lot of donation. So I think you should be ashamed of yourself. In a moment, the structural problem of brutality against the minority would again rear its head. We all know the origin of all this. Let's look at the source, and it's all very clear. What we want to safeguard is the only remaining powers and freedoms, and that is our power to monitor the government in this committee.
Does any other member wish to speak? Does any other member wish to speak?
請葉國謙議員發言答辯。喺葉國謙議員發言後呢，呢項辯論即告終。
Now, ask Mr. Ip Kok Him to speak, and this debate will come to an end after he has spoken. Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased that this meeting is broadcast live so that all members of the public will be able to see how shameless and unreasonable the pan-democrats are. Oh, Miss Claudia Mo has left the room. I think members of the public will be able to see very clearly who's shameless. They made those remarks. I think everybody sees the fact. I think the general public of Hong Kong know what happened in the past. Some members said that their right to speak had been taken away. Well, the Democrats did not speak on the 5+2 option, but they claimed that their right to speak had been taken away. Well, 20 more members are yet to speak. If they spend 15 minutes each, that will take us 300 minutes. And for 1,244 amendments, we'll need 1,866 minutes for discussion and another 36 hours to complete a discussion on the motion. This is a waste of time on the part of the legislature. The public is very angry. Mr. Wong Yok Man, please be seated. Well, I have to bring our people's voices to this conference room. Well, some members said that my adjournment motion is to take away the speaking rights of members. Sorry. Everybody knows very clearly during the discussion on the elderly old age allowance. Well, our colleagues have been speaking. So Mr. Wong Yok Man should not just resort to his loud voice, which will not make him reasonable. We should reason among ourselves. Don't just yell or shout loudly. I think we should come back to my amendment. In actual fact, all of us are very interested in that amendment. So I think we should let members of the public see who's reasonable. We should not waste our time. 6 days added to 24 hours to 55 days, and then 1 hour to 24 hours. All these are very frivolous proposals. And I'll put the motion to the vote. This committee decides to adjourn the discussion on the present discussion. Those in favor, please raise their hand. There will be a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
Mr.
Leung Kwok-hong is not speaking time at the moment. Please be seated. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, please be seated. Colleagues, please do not scold one another. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, if you continue to speak, I'll have to ask you to leave.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Before I declare the voting results, members, please check your votes. Voting ends. Voting is now closed. Display voting results. Voting results 32 for, 20 against. I declare the motion passed. As paragraph 39 is endorsed, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.